There's some of the applause for some Philadelphia 76ers fans. It is a brand new edition of the Association. We are presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Mike Am, Darren Collison, NBC Sports, Grant Liffman with us. You need to be on every single show because I'm driving in today thinking, man, it's day 2 of free agency. Can we get some news? Can we get a big splash? And you're my good luck charm.
Yeah, I actually made some calls before coming in here and said, hey, can you hold the news till we're about to go onto this show? Because I really want to talk about some spicy stuff. Did any spicy stuff happen? I don't know.
I think a couple.
Yeah, and I actually thought you could have taken credit for it, although I'm disappointed. You were hanging out with Jason Tatum and he didn't tip you off to this. Chris Paul's camp in Vegas.
Yeah, I was at the camp, didn't get a word. Kind of mad about that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. We have this nice little association button. I was told that if there is breaking news to just stomp on the button and we'll reveal a little bit of magic. So here we go.
Ooh, I like it.
I like this. All right, here we go.
High-tech sound effects,
Yes.
not to mention the light show that we have for everyone. All right, if you haven't heard, welcome, because we do have significant news to get to. The 76ers get a guy who says he is the best two-way player in the NBA. He does not count Wemby because he's an alien, and I think Jaylen Brown is probably correct in that assessment. Paul George, and you can see the first-round picks, 2 in the first round, 2 second-round picks on the move going to the Boston Celtics. All right, take me through this. We had speculated for an extended period of time here heading into free agency that this was going to happen. We just didn't know which team he was going to go to, but there's excitement. Tyrese Maxey, we were having this conversation in our green room, like, whose team is this? And I was like, well, damn, it's that dude's. It's Maxey's team. We saw the transition. There was some pushback inside the green room. We're like, no, this becomes Jaylen Brown's team. I don't know how it's going to play out, but the reaction that you had to this deal, Darren, is what?
Wow.
Yeah.
Like I have no explanation other than the fact of I know Tyrese Maxey is extremely happy, right? Tyrese Maxey has been carrying this team for a very long time.
Yeah.
Embiid's been in and out with injuries. VJ Edgecombe has a terrific first season, right? And now you add in Jaylen Brown into the mix. I mean, wow, this team is going to be very scary in the East. And it's not so much of their offense production. They have a lot of players that love to play defense.
Yeah.
They enjoy playing defense. And it takes a lot of pressure off Embiid, too, because Embiid doesn't have to do a lot offensively. Jaylen Brown is a guy that led his team as the lone guy when he was a lone star when Jason Tatum was out. So now you're asking him and Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, who had an unbelievable playoff run, too, as well. And then you're mixing that with Embiid? Whoo!
Yeah, I mean,
unbelievable.
How about this? The fact is, Jaylen Brown's 29 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The Philadelphia 76ers just got a guy who's played his best season of his career, who was an MVP-type candidate. He is 29. He's under contract. And they flipped out an older contract, a guy who's been oft injured, who's still a good player when he's healthy, but not, he's not the levels he was before. He has an extra year after that on his contract. People were saying that might have to attach assets to just get off that contract. And somehow Philly just got younger and better, and they did it all with, minimal draft assets. The 2031 unprotected first, that's a really nice asset to give up. Mm-hmm. But just in general, I'm flabbergasted. And I have texted and I've talked to some team executives just, after the trade happened and just like, what's your take? And everyone is shocked. I think the best way to say is shocked because not only that, Darren, like think about this. In the same division to the team
I was just about to say that.
the team that knocked you out, and you just made them better.
To me, that was the most confusing thing. And maybe Boston Celtics have another trade up their sleeves, but to trade him to a team like you mentioned that beat them in last year's postseason run, and then you traded him to a team that you're going to see probably 3 or 4 times throughout the year, and including the playoffs. It's like, wow. Normally, when you make these type of trades, you want to trade them across from to the other part of the country, right? But Boston Celtics has done a great job of taking care of the organization. They may have another move up their sleeves. You can never doubt Brad Stevens and Boston Celtics. They always do something that we probably don't see coming, but they may make another move after this.
You talked about the rivalry, the proximity, the familiarity between these two franchises. What does that signal to you about the relationship between Jaylen Brown, the front office, maybe some of those guys inside that locker room? Because there was conversations over the last couple of days, take it for what it's worth in the media, where they're like, oh, we can patch this up. We can figure this out. And in my mind as a fan, I'm thinking, I I don't think you're figuring that one out. You can go and try to, but I think, case in point, they weren't able to. But did this marriage, was there just not better suitors? Does it not make sense for compensation there? Was it his salary that's still remaining on the books?
You know, it's a great question. And one thing I have learned, especially with my time in the front office with the Atlanta Hawks, is you probably will never know publicly exactly the reasons for something, especially when something is enough that you're like, I do not understand this. I cannot wrap my head around it. There's usually something else happening that you probably just won't know about. But from a pure basketball sense, I mean, obviously, reconciliation wasn't something that seemed to be possible because you just don't pull off a trade like that unless you feel like there's no going back at that point. And for me, I look at it and I say, this is a team in Boston that always, as long as Jaylen and Jason Tatum were there with their pieces, they are a contender, like to win a title. They already won a title, right? Sure. And every year they're around that. And this is something that clearly they felt they had to do. And I'm not going to say that they don't value Paul George. Maybe they really do value Paul George. You know, he's a really good player. Yeah. He's just older and he's injured often. So again, I maybe, as you said, Darren, maybe there's another move coming. Maybe Boston feels like they can kind of feel it out. Well, put it this way, they didn't think they were going to be great this year, and they kind of stayed afloat with Jaylen Brown. Maybe they can stay afloat again until the trade deadline to figure out what they need, and maybe someone else becomes available. But until that happens, everyone will look at this trade and just say, hey, this is a situation where Boston felt like they needed to get off Jaylen Brown. And all the signals I was hearing before that from every source I was talking to before, they did not feel like that was going to be the situation. They felt like Boston would only make a move if they found exactly what they wanted, if they got the player back they wanted or multiple firsts, et cetera. So either they feel really highly about Paul George or they probably settled for a little less than they expected.
Yeah, for me as a fan, I love Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum together. You know, I think it's very hard to find two-way players that can score 30 points a night and play defense the way they do. I mean, I thought they were just figuring it out. But to your point, having Jaylen Brown and all these different trade rumors, you didn't pull off the trade. You know, when you're trying to trade for Giannis, you just knew it was going to be hard to repair after that. And so here we are, Jaylen Brown's in Philly. And then you're asking yourself, if you're Jason Tatum, you're like, okay, like I love Paul George, but what does it mean for me moving forward as far as in the future, right? Like where does he stand? How does this impact him? You know what I mean? I feel like Jason Tatum is a guy that you pair him up with another good player, they can go far. But I'm with you. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Paul George's contribution. This is a guy that played well last year in the playoffs, who did a great job on Jaylen Brown himself, right? And so, you know, if they can make another move because they have a boatload of first-round picks and pair that up with the team they have right now, I think Boston Celtics could be in good shape, but that's a wait-and-see approach.
I think that the issue is, as you see once again the trade details, the whole point of free agency, when you are a good basketball team, is to try to go and get better. And I think if you're in the city of Boston right now and you're the fan of the Celtics and you've seen a season where you're a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, you didn't have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown's coming off his best season as a pro, I don't know if you look at this trade compensation and go, we're a better basketball team.
No.
And that's got to be the problem.
Definitely not a better basketball team. And let's also go back a week and a half ago, they were trying to get Giannis. So think about the difference of what just happened. Instead of sending Jaylen Brown with a couple firsts for Giannis, and a lot of people were like, oh, I don't know how serious Boston is. Yeah. Well, apparently they were very serious. Yeah. And they went from maybe packaging with Jaylen with a couple guys to get Giannis.
Totally.
And now they're bringing in Paul George in a first and a half. You know, I don't want it. The 28 first is still a first. But the point is that it's just, it's shocking to see a team when they are able to compete every year and youth is on their side and they have everyone under contract and they even made the books nice this last year so that they could carry on with these guys moving forward. So, again, we probably won't know the full details and everything, but I do want to focus more on Philly here for a second because think about the changes there, right? First of all, they get Daryl Morey's out, right? The man who gets known for analytics. And then we have this huge discussion that happens that blows up on social media about Jaylen Brown not being an analytics guy, right? Well, Daryl Morey's out, and they're bringing the anti-analytics guy, apparently. Jaylen Brown comes in, and then I actually really like the Dean Wade pickup that they did too. Now
that's
you're
a
just
sneaky pickup.
Yeah, you're putting really good players, and the biggest thing again that was holding Philly back, besides injuries, was depth. And now you're starting to say, hey, you have a Dean Wade. Well, Dean Wade also gets a little injured every now and then too, but Dean Wade's good. He can defend. He can do all these things. Analytically, he actually is a great player as well. Jaylen Brown, strong, athletic, younger. Philly's just getting better.
Yeah, and D Wade is a trying defender too. Like, he's no slouch. Like, he can defend. Like, he puts forth the effort to defend. If you look at San Antonio, the Knicks, you're always seeing 3 really, really good defenders on the court at all times.
Sure.
Last season with the Knicks, it was Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG, right?
Yeah.
San
Versatility and
Antonio,
flexibility there.
exactly, right? Fox, Harper, Cassell, you know what I mean? And the list goes on. Wemby, of course, we know. Castle.
Wemby counts as 4 people. Yeah.
Wemby counts as 5, right? But if you look at those teams, right, it's a copycat league, and you look at what Philly's doing. You got Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, and now you got Jaylen Brown, 3 really good defenders that can guard their position. I mean, Philly's looking really scary right now.
They are, and I think, not to circle back from a Boston perspective, but I'd say this, and Grant, you've been in a front office with Atlanta, so you can speak to this. I would be the worst person to be in a front office because I wouldn't care about picks. It's not my money. I'm not worried about spending it. I'm all about winning right now, and I can't wrap around my brain the value, and I'm sure, at least on the NFL side, there's a value where picks are slotted and what they're worth. To me, the drafts in general are such a crapshoot. The other week there was second-round guys that are going to be stars in this league that weren't taken in the lottery. There's lottery guys, and I hope they all have success. But the truth of the matter is, not every guy taken in the lottery is going to be a successful guy. Like, I'm not worried about these picks.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I got one of the best players. And there was a case we were making on this show during the season that Jaylen Brown should have been an MVP.
For sure.
I mean, one of the best players in the league, and you just sent him to Philadelphia?
Yeah.
You're going to be matching up against those dudes? Like, my mind is blown right now trying to figure out and wrap my head around what is the master plan, because right now on paper, don't look like a better basketball team, and I'm not worried about 2028, 29, 30. Like, I don't really care.
Well, I would say that if you are trying to get in front office, absolutely delete the tape of what you just
100%.
said right there, because that is enough. I don't care about money. I don't care about picks. Okay, you're out. You've already lost your spot in the front office. That was it.
Totally.
Biggest thing for me is just the fact that they actually did clear the book, so they were capable of keeping these guys. That was part of the reason they did all what they did last year. They got off a lot of contracts, Drew Holiday, Porzingis, Horford. They changed all these things so that they could fit these big contracts together. That's why they were able to go get Giannis if they actually pulled it off. So, yeah, when you are in your prime as a team and you are actually okay on the books, there's no front office in the world that wouldn't be like, I will do anything to be in that position, to contend for a title, and all those things are going my way. So, yeah, that is why everyone is a little perplexed.
And to add to that, I would look at the parity. There's so many different teams, different seasons that anybody can win.
Totally.
Right? Every season, you're going to see 7, 8 teams that have a chance to compete at a high level for a championship, right? Philly feels like they're one piece away. All these other teams feel like they're one piece away. San Antonio, Denver, the list goes on, right? So I think what Philly did, they put themselves in that position where you got to consider them as one of the teams that can come out the East now.
Yeah.
It's not just the Knicks. I mean, last week you probably wouldn't have said that, right?
No.
But today with this Jaylen Brown trade, you can say that Philly can come out the East.
Yeah, and by the way, that's saying something, because we are seeing some movement right now in this Eastern Conference. We'll talk about Kawhi a little bit later and what it means. Josh Hart's going, oh yeah, our path to repeat might just look a whole lot different right now. The East offseason is absolutely crazy, and it speaks to what we're discussing right now. I do want to circle back in just a moment on Philadelphia and the roster construction and what this all means. Quickly here from a Boston perspective, can you just explain to me if I'm in the front office on another organization right now, and I just see it's basically 4 picks and Paul George that got this done, if our team owners like calling their front office and their GMs going like, bro, what the heck just happened? I would have been willing to give up more compensation to get a guy like Jaylen Brown. Or do you think just his current contract would have prohibited some of those calls from being made?
Oh, no, there's going to be some questions being asked. And the best front offices are, in very constant communication, coordination with their ownership, so they actually, they understand why certain things happening, what strategy they're employing, all these different things. So hopefully most front offices have that covered. But no, it is the type of thing where everyone's going to kind of look themselves in the mirror and say, wait a second, would I have actually done that in the end? Because you look at some other rumors that were swirling and some ideas. There was idea of sending Jaylen to New Orleans or Portland, and what would have been coming back their way and what those players would have made up. And if New Orleans was putting Trey Murphy, et cetera, on the table, would Boston have just taken that? We don't know, right? We have to assume that Brad Stevens and the group really likes Paul George, because otherwise it would just be like, that's a weird salary swap happening to get somebody they're not a fan of. So clearly they like Paul George. Let's put that there. But if you're another owner of another team, maybe you're looking at it. Maybe you're saying in Portland, being like, wait, if we had just maybe added that small thing, would that have gotten the job done? And, I'll tell you who also will be questioning things are fans. Yeah. Right? You're going to watch the season, and Jaylen Brown will have an amazing season, and Philly's going to be
play angry.
And every fan will be like, so wait, my team didn't want that guy? That's the guy? Yeah. So those are the things that end up happening. And by the way, that ends up getting back to owners a little bit more. But that's public perception.
I was just going to ask you, when you see a guy like Jaylen Brown get traded essentially close to Boston, does that tell you a little bit about his value? Like, if you're I'm asking you, what does that look like for his value?
That shows the market, right? And to me, again, I have to say, and I have to stress, it really depends on how much Boston really liked Paul George. Because if they really just valued him over, maybe they did get an offer for 3 firsts and more guys that don't really necessarily make an impact on the roster. That's possible. But what it does show me is that there is a weird either misconception of who Jaylen Brown is, or there's something behind the scenes that people are just not discussing that would make a value be that level for a guy under contract who's an MVP candidate, who's a wing position, a premier position, who plays both sides of the ball. That's the type of player you want on your team. And so that is confusing to me when you see a market that they're willing to send it to a rival who just kicked you out of the playoffs. If you're going that far, then I would say, yeah, the market was a little limited for him, and they also, to your point, were feeling pressure to make a move.
Yeah. In your opinion, you look at what Tatum and Brown were able to accomplish. How do you remember that duo in Boston?
I mean, you look at T-Mac and Vince, right? T-Mac and Vince are probably one of the best duo wings during their time, right? They had a little falling out, right, where T-Mac goes and he goes to his own team. This reminds me of kind of like that situation, right? A little bit different, but Jaylen Brown is a guy that can lead a team to Eastern Conference Finals when he's at the helm, right? Or even to the finals as well. Jason Tatum, we know how much of a great player he is. He's a superstar player in his own right. Both of them together were amazing. They were amazing just to watch because, to me, they were dealing with that narrative of who should be the better player. Sure. Is it Jason Tatum this night? It's his team and Jaylen Brown. But they kind of figured it out on the court, and they kind of played with one another. And then to see this, it's just like, man, bro. I just love watching that duo go to work together, and now we're not going to be able to see that.
You know the worst part? Because all three of us are basketball fans, and I know we all consume the documentaries, we watch the interviews, the guys that used to play 15, 20 years ago that hop on to, whatever podcast, and they talk about one of those teammates. And there's a level of regret that they had because they knew they had something really special. And I think about what those two guys were able to accomplish in Boston. And I don't know if it's, hey, and this is, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way when I talk about maturity, but the reality is when you're talking about your 20, I'm 44 now. I got to tell you, the way I think when I was in my 20s, a whole lot different now. The way I thought in my 30s, also different than now. And I just wonder if both of those guys, 15 years from now, we're going to be watching that documentary and they go, damn, maybe another season together would have been pretty damn special. But at the same time, I get it. You're a highly skilled player. You're out there. You want to be the dude, right? Yeah. And it just that maybe doesn't work out that way because, Tatum goes down. Brown's like, no, man, I'm not going to be anyone's Robin. I'm Batman out there. And that just get an opportunity down in Philly.
I would say sometimes the grass is not always greener on the other side, but it looks pretty green to me when you're getting traded to Philly with all those, with all those players that he's about to be playing with. I mean, you're right. A lot of times you see great duos get breaking up because of pride, and they want to be the guy. But, for me, I just don't think that they should have split these two up.
Yeah.
I thought they should have made it work. I hate that Jaylen Brown was part of trade rumors for him to feel that way, but I thought in the East they had a really good chance with Jason Tatum coming back fully healthy for this year's season and competing for a championship.
Yeah, I understood when they went after Giannis. You know, Giannis is a once-in-a-lifetime talent, and you know, I also understood the pushback to that too, because you know Jaylen Brown is pretty darn good. But yeah, 5 conference finals with them, a championship. They lost another championship. They just, you'll look back and just kind of not. To me, it's not as much of a what if, but like I feel like they had a chance to do a little bit more. And maybe it was during that stretch where it just didn't work out. Maybe they missed out on the opportunity to beat that Warriors team, and they would have had multiple championships, et cetera. But really at this point, though, I thought there would be a couple more years of this group together, and then maybe when the next contract for Jaylen Brown comes up, maybe they switch it up. But we will see what Boston does to pivot here. They still have a ton of great players on their team. They will be one of the better teams still in the East. You can just count on that as long as they're healthy. But you know, to just do it within your division, within your conference, to do it against that team. Yeah. I'll say this also. Jaylen Brown, he stays healthy. And the one thing that the Philadelphia 76ers have not had is health. And they got a guy who just is out there and plays basketball, and he will go out there all the time, and they will feel good about that. They will have Maxey and him and VJ Edgecombe, who's just getting better. Yeah. They're looking good.
You know what the wild thing is? You did it in real life. You were an actual player as well. But I grew up in New York and New Jersey, where talk radio was like, sports talk radio, like you were glued to it, right? Philadelphia's got one of those cities too, WIP. Like they're going to be calling
they're buzzing right now.
It's going to be real positive. And in Boston right now, they're maybe not as positive. This deal, not for nothing, sounds like when it was late at night and it was the overnight and it was Joe Random fan calling in going, hey, I want your best player and I'm going to give you these dudes. and like the talk show host is sitting there going like, are you nuts? Like, this kind of has that vibe right now, because Boston does not feel like a better basketball team without Jaylen Brown, with Paul George, the way that this deal is constituted. But both you guys have said it. There may be some other deals to be had here. So.
And then Nikola, he signed with Orlando, right?
Yeah, Vucevic.
Vucevic, right? This is a team that's always loved to have a stretch 5, right? Al Horford the year before, Vucevic, Porzingis, right? Mitchell Robinson, yes, he's a really good big, right? A guy that can rim roll to the rim.
Best offensive rebounder in the league.
Right? Yeah. But it does change their style of play a little bit, right? Are they going to be accustomed to doing that? This is a team that loves to shoot threes. Yeah. So now you're asking them to change their style of play and to play a different way. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did. And Mitchell Robinson and Paul George are two guys that deal with a lot of injuries. And they've had injuries over the past. They replace guys that were stalwarts, guys that you just knew every night was going to show up. So that also is something that they're going to have to get used to and manage as well.
Yeah, they bring in championship pedigree though, because Mitchell Robinson now is going
to.
Just
he's a champ
out there for all the Knicks fans. Also on the Philadelphia perspective, because you love this up. Hey, this makes sense. How does it all work on the floor? Because VJ, you mentioned him. Yep. I thought last year, you and I had these conversations on the couch. Like, this became Maxey's team. There's the Embiid factor. When he's out there, it's still kind of going through the big man. When he's not, it's going through Maxey. How do you balance this? How do you manage it if you're sitting there on the floor?
I think for them to be at their best, Maxey needs to be the guy. We've seen it before. When Maxey's playing at a high level, Philly plays at a high level. The reason why I like what they're doing right now, because I don't think Jaylen Brown is going to have a problem with Maxey being the guy. I just don't think he would, right? He's going to be a guy that says, hey, Maxey, go get 30. I'll defend the best player. I'll get you 20 to 30 still, right? VJ chips into his 15, 20. But then we're forgetting about Embiid and how impactful he can be when he's healthy, right? So Embiid doesn't have to do a lot, right? He has guys like Jaylen Brown and Maxey that can take over the scoring, load throughout the game, and he can kind of pick his moments, pick his spots. So I like this for everybody on this team across the board. I feel like it takes a lot of pressure off of everybody, and everybody can chime in and pick their moments. But I think this is a perfect fit for everybody.
I think it's a great fit. And think about for Jaylen Brown, this is the first time in his career, other than last season with Tatum out, that he gets to be the wing. Yep. Right? Now you have a point guard, You have your wing and you have your center, right? And then you have your off guard, the guy, the VJ, who can be a 2, a 3, sometimes a 1. The athleticism on this team just skyrocketed between these guys. You know, you're going to see some monstrous dunks, whether it be Jaylen Brown or VJ, or like it's going to be again. And I do love it, and I've got to bring it back up. I do love the Dean Wade acquisition, because what they did was they prepped for guys that also are willing to play their roles and do do it right, play the right way, compete and try to win. And that's what they have now around their core people. And yeah, if I'm Jaylen Brown, this is a fresh start for me. This is a way to prove to everybody that whatever you hear out there in the media, whatever you put out there that I'm not a guy, a team guy, blah, 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 I'm going to a fresh start. And I'm going around one of my favorite players in the league, in Tyrese Maxey, who brings an exuberance and excitement to the game that I think bleeds through the camera. So I'm excited to watch the Philadelphia 76ers play basketball.
Well, this is one of the reasons why a lot of people were excited that Jalen Brunson won as being a small guard. Right? He kind of proved that narrative wrong, right? You can win with a small guard like Jalen Brunson. And Tyrese Maxey is no different. You know, this is a guy that can give you 30 points a night, getting downhill, score all 3 levels. And I think he can be the number 1 option to lead his team to a finals.
There's deals still to be had here. There's free agents. There's trades that are still going to happen over the next couple days or so. In your mind, does Philadelphia for both of you, they put themselves in that 1 seed conversation right now? I think Detroit's still got to be thinking, hey, how do we improve? Boston there will, of course, throw the NBA champs, the New York Knicks, also into the mix as well. You know, I grew up in New York, New Jersey, so there's some of that that's going on right now. Yes, they will always be identified the entire. Get used to it. They're the champs. But has Philadelphia put themselves in pole position?
I'm not necessarily in pole position, because I will say this. There is a big difference in the regular season and the playoffs, right? And certain teams are built with 82-game players, and certain teams are built with 16-game players. And those are the people that, when it's playoff times come, I want them to be great. For Embiid, they need to keep him healthy, right? And so I don't know if Philly will be this dominant regular season team, because I think part of what they need to do is keep their guys healthy good enough. So maybe they're not the team that runs away with the Eastern Conference right out the gate and just stays healthy the whole year. Maybe they're, slow play it a little bit, maybe. But when it comes down to it, and you're talking about